By the time a couple of weeks had passed since the arrest of Thomas Duncan, Alder Grove had returned to being what it had always been before: quiet, predictable, and in Marjorie Gray's opinion, improved. Routine had reasserted itself. Mornings with toast, Earl Grey tea, a crossword puzzle, and the news on the radio. In the afternoons, usually chores or errands, or just chatting with her best friend Kathy. And on Fridays now, dinner with James Barnes. Marjorie found this new addition to her schedule both comforting and mildly disorienting. Kathy Briggs found it intolerable. "You've become respectable," Kathy accused her one afternoon, sprawled across Marjorie's sofa. "It's concerning." "I have always been respectable," Marjorie replied calmly. "No, before you were adjacent to respectability, and now you're dating law enforcement." Marjorie looked at her friend over the top of her reading glasses. "James is a perfectly nice man." "He doesn't like us taking an interest in what's going on in this town," Kathy complained. "He did overlook the fact that we clearly trespassed when we were on our last investigation," Marjorie reminded her. "I'd say he's been pretty generous towards us on the whole." Kathy sat up. "Well, he can't stop me flying my drone," she said defiantly. "Everybody and their little brother has got a drone these days." Marjorie froze mid-sip. "Don't tell me you really..." Kathy grinned. "I did." From behind the side of the sofa, she produced a compact gray case and snapped it open with theatrical flair. Inside, a small quadcopter drone. Marjorie stared. "You actually bought one." "You told me to take up a hobby," Kathy said innocently. "I meant like knitting." "Well, this is like knitting," Kathy argued, "just with propellers." Kathy insisted that Marjorie see how the drone worked right away. She took the drone out the sliding glass door, and Marjorie followed onto the patio with her arms folded, prepared to disapprove. The drone lifted with a soft whir, rising above the fence line. Kathy's expression shifted instantly, focused, delighted. "You see?" she said, holding the small screen out between her and Marjorie. "Isn't this marvelous?" On the screen, rooftops slid into view, backyards, patios, garden sheds, sidewalks. "It's invasive," Marjorie muttered. "Oh, come on, it's the same stuff we'd see if we took a walk around the block. It's just quicker. And besides, we're just observing. Observing your surroundings is practically a civic duty." "That is the same argument you used for binoculars, and I stand by it." The drone drifted lazily toward the end of the street, where Alder Grove curved into a quiet cul-de-sac. "Let's just see what's what," Kathy shrugged and grinned. One house on the cul-de-sac had recently changed hands, the realtors signed up for a short time and then gone again, signaling a new owner. Kathy headed for that house with the drone, a beige, unremarkable property with a garage that faced slightly away from the street. "Number 47, she mentioned. "They moved in right after Duncan was taken away." "Good," Marjorie replied. "Hopefully they didn't know about all the drama, and this can feel like a fresh start for them." Kathy agreed noncommittally. On the drone feed, a car, a dark blue sedan, pulled into the driveway. The garage door opened just long enough to admit it, then closed. "Fancy car," Kathy commented. "It's just normal life," Marjorie said. "True," Kathy agreed and moved on. Marjorie wasn't sure how often Kathy was using the drone, but Kathy took to stopping by Marjorie's at what you might call the rush hour of the neighborhood. Around 4 o'clock, give or take some time, parents were arriving home with kids, people were starting to come home from work, kids were riding bikes or skateboarding, residents were walking dogs. So Marjorie was there, seated on the patio, indulging Kathy, a second time a car entered the new owner's garage. But this time it was a green SUV. Again, the garage door opened and closed quickly. Kathy was intent on the screen and with her controls. "Did you see the plate?" she asked. "I think I got it." "Why do you want to see the plate?" Marjorie asked. "Aren't you snooping enough?" Each day after that, Kathy was ready, and a few days later it happened again. She had positioned the drone higher, angled carefully at the garage, she and Marjorie chatting while the drone stared at a closed garage door for a long while. But then a red sports car pulled into the driveway. The garage door lifted. The vehicle disappeared inside, but Kathy had been attentive and had zoomed in quickly. "Got it," she announced triumphantly. "Got what?" "The plate." Marjorie sighed. "Kathy, I'm just curious." The next morning, Kathy burst into Marjorie's kitchen holding her tablet. "Margie, come look at this." Marjorie set aside her crossword reluctantly. Kathy tapped the screen. "I ran the plate on the sports car." "You what?" "It's listed as stolen 3 days ago." Marjorie stared. "How did you even find this site?" Kathy tapped again. "Here's the green SUV, also stolen." Marjorie's stomach tightened. "Well, that's quite a coincidence," she admitted. "Yeah," Kathy exclaimed. "It is. A heck of a coincidence." They watched again the next day, and this time Marjorie was as alert and interested as Kathy was. But this time it wasn't a car going in that they saw. Instead, a tow truck arrived. The garage door opened, and the tow truck driver went to work, the tow cable eventually pulling out what used to be the red sports car. It seemed hollow, empty. No seats inside, no tires. A metal carcass scraping up the ramps onto the truck on bare axles. Marjorie covered her mouth. Oh my. The garage door shut immediately after, and the tow truck hauled the remains away. And everything looked like boring suburbia once again. We call James, Marjorie said immediately. Kathy hesitated. Or, she suggested, we gather just a bit more. No, Marjorie, no, she repeated firmly. We are not doing this again. Kathy sighed. You've changed. Well, Marjorie answered, maybe I have. Kathy looked at her mischievously. One more flight tomorrow, she smiled, and then James. Marjorie gave her a look. Just one more, Kathy insisted. You know they're not going to believe us without really solid evidence. Marjorie hesitated, and that was all it took. The next morning, Kathy came to Marjorie's with her drone, looking excited. I was taking a walk around the neighborhood, she began, having entered the house as usual without knocking or invitation. And number 47 has their garage open, but there's no cars inside, and no one seems to be home. Oh, no, Marjorie said, paling visibly. You're not suggesting more garage trespassing like last time, surely. Kathy actually laughed. That was pretty crazy, wasn't it? I had the padlock on my belt loop. That was insane. She smiled, as if reminiscing about a great vacation instead of a time they might have been killed by an illegal arms dealer. Kathy, Marjorie frowned, slightly appalled. That was not a fun time. And I'm not going to any more garages or doing any more trespassing. Kathy smiled again. I'm not asking you to. I could have done this myself, you know, but I came here just so you could be part of it. Let's go launch this baby. And she waltzed onto the patio, set the drone down, and sent it whirring into the air. Marjorie followed her out, bringing her Earl Grey as if needing it for strength. You're going to wait for them to come back home? She asked. Kathy gave her side-eye. I mean, I'm not trespassing. A piece of electronic equipment in my possession might be trespassing, but not me. Marjorie raised her eyebrows, thought about protesting, realized it would be fruitless, and brought her attention to the small screen. They were nearly at the garage already, and Kathy angled the drone downwards, close to the ground, focused and concentrating on handling it carefully. It hovered in the doorway of the garage, and both women examined the screen for any clues. Look at that, Marjorie said suddenly, pointing without touching the screen. A workbench along the side of the garage, strewn with tools on one end and sets of keys, key fobs, car keys, many of them just flung haphazardly on the work surface. The keys to the stolen cars, Kathy half shouted. Can you save that image? Marjorie asked. Already done, Kathy assured her, backing the drone carefully out and bringing it back home. Around lunchtime that day, Officer James Barnes stood in Marjorie's kitchen with a cup of coffee, staring at the drone sitting on the floor near the sliding doors. So this is your new binoculars, he said wryly to Kathy. It's no different than taking a walk around the block, really, Kathy argued. It's just observation. Officer Barnes shared a brief look with Marjorie, sort of an, oh boy, can you believe this? Moment of commiseration. It really does look like stolen cars are going into that garage, and just scrap is coming out, Marjorie explained. Yes, but none of this evidence was obtained with a search warrant, James pointed out. We saw it with our own eyes, Kathy retorted. Well, James pondered, not exactly your own eyes, but I'll start an investigation. But from now onward, he went on, with a very strict look at Kathy, you've handed this off to me, and I'm doing the investigating, all right? Marjorie and Kathy exchanged a quick smile. I'll try to keep her in line, Marjorie assured him. James sipped his coffee and sent Kathy some amused side-eye. Officer Barnes obtained a search warrant within a day of receiving the videos from Kathy's drone. He was vague about the origins of the videos, at one point implying they might have been an anonymous submission. After the search warrant, police were able to trace a few of the key fobs from the garage to the owners of stolen cars, most of whom were women who, it eventually emerged, and it was confirmed by surveillance videos, had had their keys pickpocketed from their purses. The MO of the car thieves was to wait for a woman in a luxury car to park at a big box store, to follow her in and see if her keys were accessible for pickpocketing. When they were, her car was gone and back at number 47 Alder Grove, before she was even done with her shopping. "So are we forgiven?" Kathy asked brightly over dinner, having joined Margie and James that Friday night at the local barbecue place. James chuckled. "I get the feeling it doesn't really matter what I say," he admitted, looking at Kathy. "I don't think anything will keep you from snooping." "I don't snoop," Marjorie corrected. "I just come along to lessen the insanity." "Next time we'll call you earlier on," Kathy said, as if making a great concession to reassure him. "Next time?" he laughed. "Ladies, really, you could actually endanger yourselves. Snoop if you must, but don't collect evidence. Let me do that." Kathy caught her old friend's gaze, and Marjorie, the sensible one, the predictable one, caught a contagious bit of mischief from her wilder friend. She smiled impishly. "Yes, sir. Strictly book club and crochet from now on." If you enjoyed this reading, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. This has been Tales by Rachel, where we breathe life into every story.